It's a good bounce back win for us today. I thought we started the game with the right tone on the defensive end. And so that was that was by design.
Everyone thought she was a lock. When you have the biggest star in the history of women's basketball, a player who doesn't just break records but shatters them, a player who sells out arenas in minutes and has single-handedly revived interest in a struggling league. You put her on the Olympic team, right? It seems like the most obvious decision in the world, but in a move that shocked the entire sports world and sent shockwaves through the media, Caitlin Clark was left at home. The official story was simple. They wanted experience. They said she wasn't ready. They said the roster was too stacked with veterans who had paid their dues. But insiders are now whispering that this wasn't just a roster decision. This wasn't about basketball. Rumors are swirling that this snub came immediately after a heated behind-the-scenes clash involving Clark. The physical violence she was continuously facing on the court and a WNBA commissioner who refused to step in. They tried to say it was about the system, but the truth looks a lot darker. Was Caitlin Clark actually removed as punishment for standing up to the league? To understand the gravity of this situation, we have to go back to the beginning of the season. The hype surrounding Caitlin Clark was unlike anything the WNBA had ever seen. She was coming off a collegiate career that had captivated the nation, and the expectation was that the WNBA would embrace this momentum. But from the moment she stepped onto the professional court, the vibe was different. It wasn't welcoming. It was hostile. And we aren't just talking about competitive fire. We are talking about a coordinated effort to physically beat her down. You could see it in the way opposing teams defended her. It wasn't just tight defense. It was excessive. It was picking her up full court 94 feet from the basket, hitting her on every screen and knocking her to the floor after the whistle. The veterans made it clear reality is coming. But what they meant by reality looked a lot more like hazing. The first major red flag that something was wrong behind the scenes appeared during that infamous game against the Chicago Sky. By now, everyone has seen the clip. The ball wasn't even in play. The action had stopped. And yet, Kennedy Carter blindsided Clark with a hip check that sent her sprawling to the hardwood. It was a non-basket play. It was an attack. In any other league, in the NBA, that's a suspension. That's an ejection. But in the WNBA, the referees called a common foul. They didn't even review it for flagrant until the league was embarrassed into upgrading it the next day. But watch the reaction of the players. Carter's teammate, Angel Ree, was seen cheering on the bench, celebrating the hit. This was the moment the world realized the league isn't protecting their golden goose. They are letting the wolves eat her. This is where the commissioner Kathy Angelbert comes into the story. In a situation like this, the Rehey leader of the league is supposed to step in. When Michael Jordan was the face of the NBA, the league protected him. When Tiger Woods was the face of golf, the PGA protected him. But when fans and media pundits called on Angelbert to address the targeting of Clark, the response was deafening silence. It took days for her to even acknowledge the controversy. And when she finally did, it was a disaster. In an interview that will likely go down as one of the biggest PR blunders in sports history, Angelbert didn't condemn the violence. She didn't announce fines or suspensions. Instead, she compared the rivalry to Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. She talked about how great the marketing was. She essentially told the world that the physical pounding Caitlin Clark was taking was good for business. This comment allegedly set off a firestorm behind closed doors. You have to imagine the frustration within Clark's camp. Here you have a rookie who is generating millions of dollars in revenue, securing charter flights for every team in the league, something the veterans had wanted for years. And the commissioner is treating her safety like a marketing gimmick. Rumors began to circulate that a meeting took place, or at least a very heated exchange of communications between Clark's representatives and the league office. The message was clear: protect the player or there will be consequences. But in the WNBA, the old guard doesn't like being told what to do. The theory is that this demand for accountability was seen as arrogance. It was seen as the rookie trying to run the league, and that is when the narrative shifted from how do we use Caitlin to how do we humble Caitlin. The timing of the Olympic roster announcement is suspicious to say the least. It dropped right in the middle of this turmoil. The selection committee, which operates in the shadows with very little transparency, announced the 12 names heading to Paris. Caitlin Clark was not on the list. The explanation given by the committee chair was filled with contradictions. They claimed they checked the boxes for experience and defensive prowess. They claimed they didn't want to disrupt the chemistry of the team. But let's look at the facts. Team USA has won gold at every Olympics since 1996. They are a juggernaut. They don't need 12 veterans to win. In the past, they have used the final roster spots to groom the next generation. They did it for Breanna Stewart when she was young. They did it for Diana Taurasi. Why change the philosophy now? Why exclude the one player who would bring millions of eyes to the screen? The answer brings us to the head coach of Team USA, Cheryl Reeve. If you look at Reeve's public behavior leading up to the selection, the snub stops looking like a basketball decision and starts looking like a personal grudge. Months before the team was picked, Reeve was active on social media, sending out cryptic tweets that many interpreted as shots at Clark's fan base. When the preseason game between the Minnesota Lynx and the Indiana Fever happened, Reeves seemed visibly annoyed by the questions about Clark. She famously said, "We don't give a damn," when asked about the attention the rookie was bringing. This is the woman in charge of the roster. It is hard to believe that her personal distaste for the Caitlin Clark mania didn't influence the decision. It felt like she wanted to prove a point. "This is our league. This is our team. And you haven't earned it yet." But the decision to leave her off wasn't just about the coach. It was about the locker room. The chemistry excuse was likely code for jealousy. Imagine the scenario. You have Diana Taurasi, Brittany Gurrier, Brianna Stewart, legends of the game who have been playing for a decade. They are used to being the stars. If you bring Caitlin Clark to Paris, nobody is interviewing Diana Taurasi. Every camera, every microphone, every fan is there for the rookie. The veterans knew this. There is a strong belief that the older players didn't want the circus. They didn't want to share the spotlight with a 22-year-old who they felt hadn't paid her dues in the WNBA yet. So, the committee chose the path of least resistance. They chose to protect the egos of the veterans rather than grow the game globally.